views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Welcome. It's great to be with you all, and today I have the honor, yay! Yes. Today we have the honor to be together actually physically. We are downstairs in the Commons Cafe in Brooklyn, here in the WBAI building station, and I have two very important people next to me who I'll be speaking about, and it's a great day. It's very inspiring to be here with you all and also to be sitting next to this man that I'm sitting next to who we're gonna be focusing on for the next 4 hours. And in true fashion for this show, what we did was that we started off with music. We usually spend about 30 minutes of our broadcast playing tunes. And all of the tunes today, aside from the intro, is from Mr. Eddie Palmieri, who's sitting here with us. So we can have a round of applause for the son of Latin music. And before I go any further, I'm going to introduce who's to his right, but then I'm gonna speak a little bit about what we're gonna do today. To his right is Mr. Rene Lopez, an award-winning producer, historian, musicologist, and I think his most important role for today is that he's a dear, dear lifelong friend to Eddie. So they're gonna be sharing a lot today about music, memories. We're gonna be laughing a lot, I think, but we're also gonna be talking about important compositions and how Eddie has really changed all of our lives. Those of you who are listening in right now and those of you who are physically in the room with us. So I wanted to point out that today is Sunday, and we have the son of Latin music with us. Whoa! You like that, right? And yes, he is, pun intended, exactly. He is an NEA jazz master. He's a 10-time Grammy Award winner, pianist, composer, arranger, band leader, and recording artist, Eduardo Eddie Palmieri, el hijo de Isabel y Carlo.
That's right.
Younger brother to Charlie Palmieri, father to Eddie, Edie, Ileana, Rene, and Gabriela, husband, grandfather, and friend. Eddie, you are a teacher, a mentor, a confidant, inspirer, and also you're a partner in crime, but we're not gonna talk about that too much unless Mickey, Jose, and Rene want to elaborate on that. The list goes on. Eddie, you have been called many things.
Oh, no.
Some of which we will not talk about today.
Which we cannot mention.
That's right. But today we're going to touch on some of them, but I'm just going to throw some out there, and you guys can nod in agreement in the room and at home. Genius, creator, innovator.
Thank you.
Activist, communist, master, madman. And when I found out about the madman part, I was like, why are they calling Eddie a madman? But I learned why, and I'll ask you about that later on in the broadcast, about the madness of music and how that relates to what you've done in your whole life.
I can answer that for you now.
Yeah, go ahead.
First of all, I want to say hello to you, Wadison, and to everyone that's here. Thank you. I think this is a beautiful setting that should be done every other week right here. I want to thank my compai, always, Mr. Mickey Melendez, his beautiful wife, Cynthia, and my very, very dear friend, Mr. Rene Lopez, who is a walking encyclopedia of Cuba, and he is my teacher, just like that, say that. But when you talk about madman, you see, this is what happened to me. I'm in Puerto Rico, and I'm having an interview. And the reporter says at the end of the interview, Señor Palmieri, una pregunta más? You know? And I said, sí, seguro. ¿Es verdad que usted está loco? and before I answer what I answered is, I'm thinking of the great philosopher Aristotle, who said a musician or an artist is an inspired madman, okay? So I said, seguro. The next day, Eddie Palmieri se acaba de declararse loco en Puerto Rico. I say, how did that happen? So who called me first? My beautiful mother, Doña Isabel Palmieri Maldonado. Edward. ¿Por qué que tú dices cosas así? Tú sabes que la familia sabe que es verdad, pero no se lo tiene que decir al mundo entero.
So for our non-Spanish speaking listeners, they asked Eddie if he was a madman. He said that he is. And then his mom heard and said, hey, we know you're a madman. You're not supposed to be saying that in public. Can't tell the world that. What I want to touch on before we go any further, thank you for explaining that, is that you did an interview in 2015 and you made a statement. This is just a couple of years ago. You said, when I was born, I was completely blessed.
Oh, yeah.
And I have an excerpt of it, and if you can elaborate on it. You said, I'm completely blessed.
Well, the reason was that my mother arrived here, the Isabel Palmieri Maldonado arrived in 1925 here in New York. She was already a seamstress. Okay, she came in El Cuamo, that's the name of the ship. My father came in the following ship called El Puerto Rico a year later because my grandmother couldn't stand my father and chased him all over Ponce with a broom. All right, but it's the truth. Then they get married in New York. My brother Charlie is born in 1927. And when my mother gave birth to my brother, my father literally carried both of them because my mother thought she'll never have another child. And I popped up 9 years later, you know? So I was completely blessed. And my brother Charlie was my inspiration, my best friend. And I miss him very much.
What I love about what you said is that every day it just gets better and better. And that's such an inspiration. You just celebrated your 80th birthday a few months ago.
Well, that's another misnomer.
Oh, you're going to clarify. Okay. Okay.
I learned from Chocolate Amentero, the great trumpet player, Cuban, great, I mean, forget about it. He taught me that after 50, you start counting by one again. So right now, I'm 30. I'm going on 31, December 15th. I don't know about you guys.
He's a baby, yeah. So let me have Rene talk a little bit. We actually met before we sat here today to talk a little bit about Eddie, and we spoke about so much. We laughed a lot. But how do you want to start off speaking about this person that you've known how many years now?
Well, I know Eddie since 1963. I used to go to the Palladium with my uncle, Catalino Rolón. He used to program a lot of the music at the Palladium. He would bring groups from all over the world and use local groups also, the Tito Puente, the Arsenio Rodriguez, Machito, Tito Rodriguez. And there was a circuit of theaters here where they would have music on the weekends. They would play movies, and then at 8 o'clock they would stop the movies and they would present a show. There was a Teatro Puerto Rico, el Teatro Santurce, el Teatro San Juan, and there was 6, el Teatro Hispano, el Jefferson. There was a bunch of theaters where they had, and my uncle, that was sort of like his deal. He would also bring orquesta from Puerto Rico. He used to bring, Cortejo y su Combo was the one he used to bring a lot. And of course, that was great success. And as he brought them, they'd play the shows, and then later on he'd take them to the Palladium. So when I got out of the service in '62, my uncle raised me. He was my mother's brother. My mother died when I was 4 months old, and my uncle raised me from the age of 8 on. He was my father, for all sense. So he was working very, very hard, and I loved the music. So after that, on weekends when I could, I would go with him to help him in any way that I could. That's when I first saw Eddie. The first time I saw Eddie, I saw him at the Palladium. And I'll never forget it because I used to love Eddie already from the records. And I knew Charlie too. I had met Charlie. But Eddie's conjunto at that time, to me, as a music fan and as a person, not as a collector at that time, although I was getting interested into it. Eddie represented the best to me. Whenever I saw Eddie Palmieri, it was always a very, very exciting and very cataclysmic moment that happened on the bandstand, where everything came together and they blew everybody away. And I must say, with all due respect, he used to hold his own with the best bands in the business at the time. Not only hold his own, and in my opinion, maybe I was young and I was a fan, generated actually more excitement, in my opinion. So that was when I started getting interested in Eddie Palmieri. And the first time I saw him, just to give a brief story, was incredible because that's when I met Barry Rogers. I met him. My uncle introduced me to some of the members, and I met Eddie, and I shook his hand. And Eddie doesn't remember, but So Barry Rogers would finish playing his set, and the band playing, the alternating band, was La Sonora Matancera with Celia Cruz and Celio Gonzalez. They had just gotten here from Cuba. And Barry, instead of taking the rest for the break, he would go up and play with Sonora. And I would see this man, who just had such fire for the music. That fire was together with Eddie, the inspiration of La Perfecta. So I never forgot that. That was an incredible moment. And the other fact that I always try to mention is that Eddie changed the sound of what bands played here in New York and eventually all around the Latino-speaking world that cultivate this type of music, what they call salsa today, but in essence is Cuban-based music. So Eddie substituted the trombones for the violins. It was a real dramatic change, to the fact that, as a matter of fact, 6 or 7 years, or 5, 6 years, after the Perfecta had such an impact on everything, there was virtually no new band that didn't come out with the trombone sound. All of them. The trombone became one of the most popular instruments in Latin music. But prior to Eddie's using trombones, it was always just something added when you had the dough and you had a big band and you want to amplify your sound. Machito used them. I'm sure Puente used it at times. But it was just like I don't want to call it a tinge, but it was just an added sound, a different, filling out the sound spectrum a little bit more. But with Eddie, it was the basic component of what he was about. And that, together with the flute, and of course the liner notes on Eddie's first record, has the greatest intro of any liner note I've ever heard in my life. It was written by his brother, and the opening sentence is, "My brother Eddie is a nut." I never read a liner note that opened like that. My brother Eddie is a nut. So that created the basis for my always following Eddie Palmieri. First of all, as a piano player, and for the excitement and the rhythmic, I would call it commitment, because it's a commitment of his rhythm section, which was just the most incredible thing. Eddie, of course, and bass player. I saw him with Bobby Rodriguez and then with David Perez, and of course Tommy Lopez and Manny Oquendo. And an incredible singer, by the way. Ismael Quintana had a unique voice. It was a complete fresh voice, sounded like nobody. He never tried to copy Tito Rodriguez or Benny Moré or Santito, and nobody. He had his own sound. Y ese era what they call in Spanish el sello. The imprimatur, the seal of Eddie Palmieri's band was the moment that the singer would open up his mouth, you knew it was Eddie. So that combination of factors with the rhythm section, Barry Rogers, who was an absolutely incredible musician, composer, arranger, and then with Jose Rodriguez, the unsung hero. Jose was a rock.
Exactly right.
I mean, a rock in there. And George Castro, who I'm listening to the records now, and my opinion of him as a flute player, we spent the day yesterday, Eddie and I, listening to the music. I must say I've got to amend my opinion. I didn't think of him much on the flute at times. At times he was very good, at times he wasn't. I always just say, but he sang a great coro. So he was an integral part of the band. But in that first album, boy, he's playing some flute. So that's a changed opinion. So that's my introduction to Eddie. He changed the music. He changed the sound of the music. Today, that still stands as the real only innovation made on this music. from the contribution from New York and eventually from Puerto Rico and all of the other countries that follow that line, including Cuba. Eventually, they had the trombone band put into their band too. It was because Eddie uniquely changed the sound. Prior to Eddie, all of the groups adhered to a sound that you could find on the island, with their different peculiarities, because with Puerto Rico, it was Gran Combo, with the saxophones and the trumpet. They had El Combo, that was their sound. But it was always a conjunto, estilo de Arsenio Rodriguez or de La Sonora Matancera, or a big band. And you know, like Benny Moret's band, La Orquesta Riverside, and we had the Machito band, and Tito Puente, Tito Rodriguez, or a charanga band. You know, the Orquesta Broadway, of course, you know, being the hallmark, in my opinion, of that. But other bands, those were the structures. And what Eddie did was he turned the charanga structure, he turned it around. Instead of 2 violins and a flute, he put 2 trombones in the flute. It was creative, different, and created what I think is truly the only real New York sound, the contribution from New York.
Thank you. So, Rene, you touched on Cuba. Oh, let them have their conversation. Hey, guys, we're live. You touched on Cuba. The influence of Cuban music, can either of you talk about it? Manny Oquendo and the introduction of you to Lili Martinez. Rene or Eddie?
Oh, no.
I'll let Eddie do that, because
Okay.
it was his intro.
Yeah.
And I have a tune to play for you, but go ahead.
Yeah.
The structures of the Cuban structures. I was a young man, and first of all, at that time, I'll give you an example. Tito Puente was a mentor of mine. I wanted to be a drummer. So my brother, Charlie, was already playing with Tito Puente. He was 9 years older. And listen to this conjunto. Vicentico Valdez singing, my brother Charlie Palmieri on the piano, Tito Puente en el timbal, Manny Oquendo en el bongo, and Mongo Santa Maria on the conga. Give me a break.
Right.
Now, Tito Rodriguez, I want to say hello to Charlie from the Cha-Cha Taps that was very famous in the Palladium Ballroom. Thank you for being here.
Carlito.
Now, Tito Rodriguez, you know, had Tommy Garcia on the piano, Luis Barreto on bass, Monchito Muñoz on timbales, Little Ray Romero on bongo, and a Cuban conga player that we never saw him develop anymore here, but his name was Chonguito. Or Chonguito. It was Chonguito. The reason is that when the doctrine changed in Cuba, which affected us tremendously here, because Cuba was the umbilical cord of information coming to New York. The Cuban orchestra that we had, naturally called the Machito, that started in 1939, but Tito Puente and all the other bands in between. You can't forget about Miguelito Valdez or Marcelino Guerra. I mean, these are pioneers, all of them. But in 1949 is when Tito Puente starts his orchestra. In that form of writing and playing and being the artist he was on the timbales, and I wanted to be a timbalero for my brother, you know. And I'll tell you how fast I changed my mind eventually. It's called superiority of women. My mother didn't want to know about me playing no timbales, but since that's what I wanted to do, eventually she buys me the ladies, my cymbal, but she buys me a case, and the case was made out of the metal. If anybody remembers, the old folks that used to come, lo baule, the metal baul, you open it up and with drawers and hanging suits. That metal is something special, and now you put a pair of timbales in there. When you're gonna pick it up, you're gonna think you got 2 or 3 pairs of timbales in there. And sure enough, I'm playing timbales with my uncle Chino against y su alma tropical, and my uncle Frankie on conga, my Roberto de Bongo, Miro, who played with el conjunto Tauné en Puerto Rico, Manolín, el cantante, Tati en la trompeta y Nicolás en el bajo cuando había más plata. That's the truth. So now my uncle Chino, he used to come and hit the horn. Bang, bang, come on, Eddie, let's go. We got to go to the States. You got to go to the gig, whatever. Okay, I'm 13 years old, you know. And now when I pick up the timbales, my mother says, again, Eduardo, tú no ves qué lindo se ve tu hermano cuando él va a trabajar y no tiene que agarrar un instrumento, Eduardo. ¿Cuándo tú vas a aprender? Estoy aprendiendo, mami. And in 2 years, I made a deal to my uncle that he couldn't refuse. I gave him the timbales and forget about it. I never want to see them again. And went back to the piano.
What got you connected to the piano of all instruments?
Excuse me?
What had you pick the piano?
Oh, because I didn't have to carry any instrument.
Okay.
The answer was in your question.
Okay.
But playing timbales has certainly enhanced my signature, you know, as a player, because like Donald Harrison, the great Donald Harrison, alto man that played last week with me at Subrosa, we're there every Monday, you know. My son Eddie runs it, you know. This Monday, tomorrow, Alfredo de la Fe will be there. And when Alfredo de la Fe and I meet, the sparks going. Last week with Donald Harrison, the fire alarm went on. That's just an example of what's going to happen tomorrow. Anyway, so we're there every Monday, whenever, and it becomes like, you know, it's a small room. The whole about it's in the chic place in the meat packing district that they're really developing, and it belongs to the Blue Note. You know, just letting you know that. But the reason that I'm mentioning is because the music that I live by, it's in my blood naturally, you know. It started Afro-Cuban, it became Afro-Caribbean, and now it's Afro-World. And in that small venue, you know, we're doing a variations of different artists, different genres. We had a flamenco, we had this with a great pianist called Alex Conde, and it's a beautiful setting. Rene, you could elaborate a little bit because you've been there. Would you do that?
Yeah, well, what they're doing is they're doing different themes every Monday night. I think it's a golden opportunity to see Eddie in a venue which you'll never see him like that again, never, ever. Eddie doesn't do those type of things. You know, he has a set group, and of course some of these are his set musicians, but there's a different theme every Monday, and it's a unique situation. It's unique because Eddie treats the event like if it's his living room at home, and you're his guest. Yeah. He's charming, and you know all that other stuff. And it's a very relaxed atmosphere, which lends itself to really great creative music. He had one with Joe Locke, which I just thought was incredible. I missed the Harrison one, which I won't forgive myself for.
Don't mention what you said.
No, I won't mention it. I can clean it up though. Eddie called me on Monday, and said, no, on Sunday. I told him, look, Eddie, I'm not going to be able to go.
But you work all weekend.
Because I had worked all weekend. No, Monday was a holiday. So I said, nah, I'm not going to be able to go. I'm chilled out. I had a tough Sunday and blah, blah. So
What happened at 7 o'clock?
This was about 4 or 5 o'clock. And Eddie told me, yeah, it's going to rain. You're right. Stay home. Be comfortable and blah, blah, blah. Around 7 or 7:30, I looked at myself. I looked at my wife and I said, what the hell did I do? I didn't use those words, though. I said, I'm crazy. I'm sitting here watching a stupid program. I could be over there watching Eddie. This is a nutty thing. And then, of course, the next day I call Eddie. I say, how'd it go, Eddie? He says, it was great. And I said, of course. But anyway, I think it's a unique situation for Eddie.
Will you be there tomorrow?
Oh, yeah. And I had the fun of being a guest on one of the Mondays. And
let me,
Sure.
if you don't mind.
Sure.
What we did on that Monday, we dedicated to el son de Cuba y el son montuno de Cuba. And the only one that I could bring up for that, his name is Nelson Gonzalez. Nelson Gonzalez, to me, is the greatest felicita now in the world.
I agree with that.
This is me now. This is my opinion, okay? And a wonderful human being. And we played with the rhythm section because after 46 years, I've been able to get back Nicky Marrero. Nicky's playing bongo, he's playing timbalito, and he's playing timbales whenever Camilo Molina can make it for whatever reasons. And the rhythm section with little Johnny Rivero is just unique. And the bass player, Lucas Curtis, is just, to me, the greatest spiritual bass player that ever was able to comprehend what I play. And these are young players with some veterans in there. And what we do is give a variation, like every Monday. And I love that because it gives me the moment of being like stylistic, pianistic, that's the word I wanted to use. In another form, like Rene Lopez says, that I've never, not that I've never done, I recorded that style because I believe in extensions and variations, but never in a close setting like that. And I'm really, really enjoying it to the max, okay? So, what was the question?
It was about
It's time for
the
me to
different
step
themes
in.
on the Monday, and I had brought up the thing about the song.
That's right, the song.
Because Eddie tells me...
I'm going to tell you something. I knew I had a problem today when I forgot my memory pills. Anyway, so that night was just amazing because what we did, Mr. Melendez, we took the compositions, of the Cuban great players, great recordings, and then we brought. I was going to sing with Nelson, and let me put it this way: I don't want to mention God, but thank goodness that I was able to bring Nelson's son, because if I would have sang, that would have turned on the fire alarm again. The main thing is, it came out great, and we did numbers, that was just wonderful for my memory bank, how I started. Because when I started listening to Cuban music, the gentleman that I must always thank in my heart was Mr. Manny Oquendo. The reason is that I went to see Tito Puente. My brother was playing with him, and when he was 15, I was 15 years old. And I met Manny Oquendo, so I used to play stickball on Kelly Street, because that was the game that we did to imitate baseball. And I love stickball. The only time I quit stickball is when they took away the 3 strikes, only 1 strike and no gloves. That's when I quit. Because that ball comes at you at a mile a minute, okay? So I saw Manny Oquendo walking up, and I ran to him. I said, Manny, Mr. Oquendo, I'm Charlie. Yeah, I remember you, Eddie. I met you at the Pyramid. Could you recommend a record that I should hear at the piano solo? Pianist, And he grabbed his mustache. El Viejo Socarrón. Wow, that's all he had to tell me. By the time I got through with the 78 of orchestra, El Viejo Socarrón, the needle went on the other side. Kept listening. Now it becomes 1956. My brother always recommended me to different bands. Right? He recommends me to Vicentico Valdez's orchestra. Okay. The problem I have is that Manny Oquendo had a zenith, a beautiful zenith with low bass and low bass, you know. Oh, you know, imagine that they never threw him out of the apartments and loud, you know. That was on Kelly Street on the Banana Block. And who comes to fix his radio? My father. My father was a radio and television, you know, repairman, you know, picking up those TV. The box was tremendous, and the screen was 7 inches. And he carried this for 5 flights. Okay. He comes to see Manny Oquendo to fix his. And in the course of the conversation, Manny Oquendo tells my father, "Sabe que su hijo, you know that your son, Eddie Palmieri, is going to start with Vicentico." No, excuse me. Your son is going to start with Vicentico Valdez. And my father says right away, Charlie. And Manny goes, "No, Eddie. Eddie no sabe tocar el piano." That's my recommendation for my father. I said, Jesus Christ. But it's the truth. I went, ay. Because see what happened? My brother at 14, you could play tango. My father would say, "Toca un tango, Charlie. Toca un paso doble, Charlie." Meanwhile, he played all these, and I'm going, ton ting, ton ting, ton ting, ton ting, ton ting. El motoro. Anyway, that's how it started. Now, I finally get to play with Vicentico. My opening night combined with Vicentico in the Palladium. They give me my solo. They give me a solo. Oh my God. When the solo was over, you know, in the night, Vicentico was able to talk to me. This is what he told me in Spanish. "Eddie, veré lo que está conmigo, pero el solo tuyo sonaba como una billonera." You know, you put a nickel in the you don't know in what direction you're going. It was so the next thing, Mr. Manny Oquendo brings me 25 78s. I was living with my mother and father, you know, at that time on Home Street, you know, off West Farms Road. And he brought me 25 78 of different orchestras. And that's when I got weaned to the music that was coming out of Cuba, you know. And then they gave me a fib that it was Tommy Lopez's birthday. So I ended up buying the bottle of rum, and it wasn't his birthday.
So Eddie, what we're going to do now, we're going to play some music. One of the songs that I'm going to play...
No, I want to keep talking.
You want to keep talking? Okay, you're the boss. You are the boss. No, we're going to play some music. All right, we have...
As a matter of fact, Bill, this is my show tonight.
We're gonna take the station over. We'll be here all night. What time do you have to leave? We'll stay.
12 midnight.
All right, so then we're here till 12. You guys are here till 12. I just wanted to make a point to let our listeners that are tuned in online or at 99.5 FM is that we have a live audience with us. So the laughter that you hear is real because we have people sitting with us enjoying Eddie Palmieri, Rene Lopez, and really feeling this wonderful energy. So I hope that you're feeling it too. What we're going to do now is play a few tunes. One of them is based on the recommendation of Rene. We're going to play a song from Chapotín and Cuní that has Lili Martinez on piano, which was an inspiration for you.
That's my mentor.
Yes, so we're going to play him. And we're also going to play, thanks to Edwin Garcia, who's with us. This gentleman over here, he wrote the discography on Willie Torres. We're also going to play 2 tracks from the teenager band that you were a part of with Orlando Marin.
Oh, no.
You don't want to play those? Okay. Like I said, you're the boss. Okay. We're going to play 2 tracks from those. They're very short.
You can play 2 tracks, and I'm going to go upstairs.
Okay. And then we're going to play a song called Brothers in Mambo.
Orlando, I love you, Orlando.
Orlando's probably on his way right now, coming to visit us. We're going to play a tune called Brothers in Mambo. Do you remember?
I wrote that with my brother. Yes, I wrote the first part, and he wrote the second part.
Okay, so we're going to play those 4 and probably a few more tunes from La Perfecta, and we can come back and talk about La Perfecta and the impact that had. Okay?
Thank you.
All right.
I'd like to mention one thing. the reason we're going to play this Chapotín tune is the way I heard it, even though there are variations, and Eddie's on the money. He had asked Manny, what should I listen to listen to a piano solo? And that was Viejo Socarrón. But Eddie told me that the first Chapotín record he heard was not that. The first Chapotín record he heard was Me Voy Contigo.
That's after Vicentico told me that I sounded like a Nickelodeon.
That's right, that's right.
So that night, Manny, for the first time, I found out that he had some kind of feelings in his heart, And he says, Eddie, and Mike Collazo was he was the timbalero. They took me to a place called on Prospect Avenue, La Giralda.
La Giralda.
La Giralda with a restaurant. And at that time, there was a Seaberg, jukebox, a nickel. And Manuel Kendo again grabbed his mustache and said, I want you to let me know what you think of this. And it was Me Voy Contigo. And I dedicated my whole life since then to the structures that came out of Cuba. And that leads me to another situation. There was a book called Grief Philosophy. And in the chapter, I was talking to Rene Lopez about that yesterday, in the chapter called Matter and Form, if the mode fits the structure, then it's the structure that we must analyze. And that's what I did intuitively with the music coming out of Cuba in those years. Then I learned it scientifically why it works. And we could talk about that later.
All right, so I'm going to play, okay, boss? I'm going to play the music. You're supposed to laugh. No, nobody? Okay. So what I want to let everyone know is that we are here at 388 Atlantic Avenue in Brooklyn, New York. So if you want to come by, there's still time. Like Eddie just said, he'll be here till midnight, so you have a lot of time to get here. You can come from other states and we'll still be here. So on that note, we're going to get right back to the music.
From the north to the south to the west to the east, we are expanding our services and upgrading technology at Lehman College. And now, Bronxites have an innovative media production facility in the East Bronx at Mercy College in the Hutch Metro Center. The windows on the East Bronx studio, a state-of-the-art control room, media labs for production and training, and other media-capable spaces. Training, workforce development, leading-edge technology, and programs that help you share your ideas, your voice, on your channels, locally and globally. Build media and technology skills at BronxNet and build your dreams.
Well, I got this as a paid internship. Spending my time here, I really enjoyed the people that work here. I enjoy what goes on behind the scenes.
So far, I've learned how to operate a camera, how to host. I learned how to control audio.
My first time hosting was really nerve-wracking, but I really enjoyed it because it was a new experience.
All right, if you're just tuning in, you are listening to Con Sabor Latino here on WBAI 99.5 FM in New York. And if you're online, you're tuned in at WBAI.org. And it's Sunday, June 4th. It's a special broadcast. We were extended today by an hour so that we can accommodate the prolific Eddie Palmieri, who is with us today, and we're in front of a live audience, which is my first time. Anyone else first time in front of a live audience? Anybody? Yay! And it's been so much fun so far, and we're almost at the end of the second hour, but we still have a lot more to go. So we played some really great music. This last tune, Picadillo, and Eddie pointed out to me, the best trombone solo ever.
Ever. Barry Rogers was, I always said, especially in his memorial, when he passed away, when Barry Rogers passed away, he made it his business to bring his father to live with him. His father was 93, and his father found him dead. Amazing. Barry Rogers, to me, I said it as a memorial, God being perfection, Barry Rogers was near perfection. That is the greatest bandstand buddy I've ever met in my life musically. The work that we did together will never be equal, in my opinion, you know. And I miss him dearly, you know. The last week we did together was the Son of Latin Music. We did Sentido. We hadn't seen each other after he left, because after he left La Perfecta, he went, and eventually then he landed up with Dreams, which was his friend Mr. Randy Brecker and Michael Brecker. And then when I did Sentido, they brought him to me again, and he did the orchestrations for Puerto Rico y Adoración. And then we met for Dia Bonito and the Son of Latin Music. Then he played again with me in 1980 when I did the album, the White Album, with El Dia Que Me Quiera, with Victor Paz playing the 4 trumpets, and Barry Rogers on side B with Andy Gonzalez played the 3 trombones, you know. The most incredible album, in my opinion, the synchronization of the greatest musicians, which is where it means everything to me, because what comes out of there then would be quality because of the preparation that these individual musicians have. And that is something that's very concerning to me about being faithful to my fans and to the students that are listening to learn how to play these instruments. So Barry right now is with my brother Tito Puente and the rest of the boys up there waiting for me. And I told them I ain't going yet. I miss you all dearly, but like Houdini said, ain't nobody come back to tell us how great it was. So I ain't taking no chance.
All right, so I just want to acknowledge an oversight of mine. I've been calling you Mr. Palmieri, but I should be calling you Dr. Palmieri.
Oh.
Yes. So, Dr. Palmieri, tell us a little bit about this this PhD.
Well, this is a very dear friend of ours. Started with Mr. Rene Lopez, who works at the same hospital with the great Mr. Bob Sancho. He was initiated a doctorate for me at Lehman College. My daughter Tracy Palmieri is on the board at Lehman, and she made it possible through my son Eddie Palmieri II to handle everything, and it was a beautiful, beautiful afternoon on June 1st. Mr. Schumer, Senator Schumer was there, Mr. Fernando Ferrer, my dear friend in that, and it was a beautiful for the class of 2017. And I had my beautiful granddaughter there, also Alyssa, and my lady, Evelyn, they were there. And we had most wonderful, wonderful afternoon, and also my son Danny. And after that, it was just an amazing evening, afternoon, because I have received certain, in Puerto Rico, in the Heineken Jazz Festival, I got a doctorate, and then in Yale, I got the CHUP scholarship, and because of Mr. Our man in Yale?
Well, I'll think of his name. Bob
Robert Ferris Thompson.
Bob Thompson. Robert Ferris Thompson.
Yeah, right. And he made it possible. So this was a tremendous honor, and only because at the same time, I was born in El Barrio, in 112 between Madison and Park. But I was raised in the Bronx, and the Bronx is in my heart always. And then the award was given to me from Lehman College in the Bronx, which I have also performed with my orchestras at certain times. So it was quite an honor, and thank you for bringing that up.
Well, round of applause, congratulations. Okay, I wanted to acknowledge that today is National Cancer Survivor Day, so to all of our survivors, all of our families that support survivors, all of us have been touched by cancer, so just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge that. I also wanted to let you know that there's going to be an article tomorrow in the Daily News by Mr. Juan Gonzalez, who we featured on the show a few weeks ago on the Puerto Rican Day Parade. So just take note to check that out. Since we're acknowledging you mentioned Bob Sancho, we wanted to acknowledge a number of people who were involved with making today happen. First being the Palmieri family, so we want to extend our thanks to Eddie II for working with us and just being in communication, and also Palmieri Management for making today happen.
Thank you.
I also wanted to take a moment, and it's something that I think we may forget because we're having a great time and we know that we love the music, but we might forget to say so. But we want to take a moment to thank those musicians of the present and the past that partook with you, but just have us here today, because if it wasn't for the music, we wouldn't be all together having this conversation. So I just wanted to take a moment to do that. Also, the Brooklyn Commons Cafe, round of applause. Thank you guys for hosting us and for being so cooperative. Also, I wanted to acknowledge our two wonderful gents that are with us, Mr. Tony Ryan, and behind this banner is Grayson. They've made today possible. So a round of applause for these guys. They saw me when I got here, so they know, yeah. Also wanted to acknowledge Iran Maristani. Is he with us yet? Not yet? Okay. We also wanted to say thank you to Edwin Garcia, who I pointed out earlier. He's been a great help. All of the BAI volunteers who make all of these productions and just the station what it is, I just wanted to take a moment to acknowledge them. And these two young men in the back from BronxNet. So BronxNet is here, by the way, I didn't say that. And they are filming. They're filming today so that this could be part of not only WBAI, but something that we have for our children, our grandchildren, our great-grandchildren. He's not going anywhere, right? But it's important for us to document our legends and give them a voice. So I'm glad that we're doing this. And also I wanted to acknowledge that we're doing this here in your hometown, right? Because you do a lot of interviews. I've seen you do interviews on the West Coast in New York City. We're in New York. Did you know that? Did you know that we're in... No, estamos en Ponce. Estamos en Nueva York. See, I got him back before for not laughing when I asked him to laugh. All right, so...
Marisol, what are you talking about?
I'm a mad woman. You're a mad man, and I'm a mad woman.
An inspired man.
That's right.
Inspired mad woman.
Inspired by the music, yes. We also wanted to thank 111th Street Old Timers Stickball Organization. Mr. Jose Encarnacion is here with us, always present. And I'm going to get into this later on.
If I may,
please do.
I want to say hello to, when you talk about stickball, you know, Mr. Carlos Diaz, you know, from the Barrio. He's the one that made it also possible to get my brother's street and 112th Street. And he's with the community. And he's a great stickball player, and he's the one that saw me hit a home run. I only hit one home run in my whole career.
And he saw it?
And you got that picture.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so I also wanted to take a moment because Mickey Melendez is here. I don't know if I acknowledged him yet. I know Eddie did, but just your presence and being a part of this, and you're the connection here. For me, between Mr. Palmieri, even though I've followed you all over the place and seen you perform, now us being here together is due to Mickey, so I just want to acknowledge him. We can have a round of applause.
That's my compay.
And also, as an extension of that, the Young Lords organization, which we will talk about and how that relates to Mr. Palmieri as an activist and someone who has stood up for social justice for our community. So we'll talk about that as we go along, but let's talk a little bit about the music that we played. We played a lot of great tunes. We played Picadillo, we played Muñeca.
I realized you have great musical taste.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Palmieri. Thank you. Yeah, all the songs are yours, all of them. All of them.
As a matter of fact, I believe every other Sunday should be dedicated to my music.
Yeah, and we'll change.
And I gotta tell you why, because there's a great philosopher also called Pascal. You know, and he said that, you know, from apologies to humility is a sign of weakness, okay? And at my age now, I think I'm able to say anything I want. At 30 and 31, December 15th. Yeah, my dad.
So we're going to change the show name to Montuneando con Palmieri, because it's Montuneando con Marisol. So is that okay with you?
As a matter of fact, we should have a reality show. We bring in Mr. Melendez, and we bring in Rene, and our guest star will be Charlie to the Chop Chop Tots.
We also played the African Twist.
Oh.
And is that the only, well, one of two. We talked about this, Rene, about Eddie recording with females, right? So it was
Right.
Cindy Ellis
Cindy
was the
Ellis.
voice on that. And then the other one would have been La India that he recorded. And that's it? No other?
Oh, yeah, and La India, I just found she's with the Indians now.
Oh, she's with, okay.
She
great.
went back to the Indians.
Okay.
La India is one of the most incredible women I've ever met. If you know, somebody could tell her, because I love her very much. One of the most beautiful women I've ever seen, and that is because she was with what was his name? Anyway, he's one of the top disc jockeys in the world. Little Willie. Right?
Oh, Little Louis Vega.
Little Louis Vega.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay. I told you to remind me to bring my memory pills. Anyway, the main thing is that when I saw her, because it was David Maldonado who took me, he said, you know, Eddie, you got to get hip to what's going on in the street. You know, you can't keep thinking about Manny Kendall. But what he meant was, you know, what's going on, and, you know, have no idea. And I you know, what I'm thinking about is what I'm going to write and what I'm going to play better, and that I'm a student of music, you know. That's what my main interest, okay? So David Maldonado takes me to the studio, and she's doing hip-hop. And when we met, the look she gave me is like, if I never see this guy again, you know, God truly loves me, or something along those lines. Hated me. Just a look, you know, you could tell, you know. I said, oh, wow, I better get out of here. But eventually her financial, you know, advisor and little Louis Vega, who is a genius in what he does, then we finally recorded together. We had to be in the sessions at 10 o'clock in the evening, and La India would arrive. My son was there, Eddie Palmieri II. He would arrive, she would arrive about 1 or 2 in the morning, you know. By 5 in the morning is when her voice was opening up. It was the most incredible recording that that I ever got involved in. And it, to me, is one of the best recordings, and I wrote all the music for her, you know. And unfortunately, the album comes out, and the next day, the company went bankrupt.
Wow.
So I said, well, here we go again.
Back to the drawing board. So let's talk about Azucan and the Library of Congress. Tell us about that.
Well, Azúcar was written by me by I would say late 63 going in 64, because we recorded in 1965. And that's because I was signed with the great Al Santiago, that would have been the first Puerto Rican billionaire, in my opinion. The idea that he had of recording and manufacturing and pressing everything in Puerto Rico is a format that later on Fania, you could say copied, whatever, but they did it in Venezuela, in el Palacio de la Música, that they pressed and everything there, you know. But that was his idea. Unfortunately, something happened between him, his lovely wife. They separated, and he never was able to achieve what he started, because he had started it in Puerto Rico. So now the company is not doing well, because the one who brought a lot of money in when they had the All-Stars was certainly my brother. My brother was like the center of the Clark bar, because everything was wrapped around my brother. Now, he goes into hard times, and that's Mr. Morris Levy buys the company for $80,000, okay? So eventually, I signed with Tico, because Azúcar is so hot in the street, without recording it yet, you know, that Symphony Sid, the great Symphony Sid, that his show started at midnight, and the great Jack Cook, who's the one that used to do salsa meets jazz in the Village Gate, and he also was the manager of Tito Puente later on, were at the signing of when I went and signed with Morris Levy. I told him, well, the problem is that I started another album for Mr. Santiago, who helped me tremendously because of my brother. So if you let me finish that, we won't have any problem. That was Lo que traigo es sabroso, that muñeca that you played before. And he says, oh, yeah, finish it, no problem, you know. The only thing I remember besides anything else with Mr. Morris Levy was me signing my contract, because he had a woven tapestry behind his desk that said, oh Lord, bring me a bastard with talent. And he fulfilled his word. He was backed by the Genovese family and the Colombo family, and now he signs me, and the first thing that I do in I don't even know what year it is, when I do Mambo con Congas Mozambique, I get accused of being a commie, a communist by Alpha 66, and now they're threatening all the stations that if you play Eddie Palmieri's music, we're gonna blow up the station. The first Cubans that came, you know, they weren't very nice guys. Okay? Because at the same time, the Cubans were fighting in Angola. Anyway, now here comes the CIA and the FBI to see Morris Levy, you know. And Mr. Levy is just Mr. Palmieri. But that Mr. Palmieri was like to give me a kick in the butt, you know what I mean? Mr. Levy, this is like the conga, you know, pum 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 pum, you know. And I thought I was saying to myself, man, you got him. I think you got him. I think you got him. Explaining to him what the Mozambique is. The problem was the name Mozambique, because Afro-Can, you know, Pedro Afro-Can, our Mozambique was different because the Manio Kendo and that or whatever. They say we go. And I explained it to him, and he goes, oh, I see. Excuse me, but this is exactly what he said. Mr. Palmieri, don't record that shit for me anymore. You understand? Anyway, but I kept doing it. Well, I'm thinking, here, now what happened? Now what happened? So everything is going great, and now I meet Calvin Snooky Clash, you know, who was in Sing Sing. He died in Sing Sing. And Snooky was a great writer, and that's when we came up with the idea of doing Harlem River Drive, okay? So I asked Mr. Levy, listen, Mr. Levy, I'd like to record it on Roulette Records, not Tico, because I'm thinking of Tommy James and the Shondells, you know? I want a crossover. This is my moment, don't you understand? Okay, so, and my brother's on organ. It was an incredible LP. Harlem River Drive is the past, present, and future. Everything that's there, you know, especially one called Idle Hands, you know, you all know the story, how it all began. It took 5 days, and then came man, and all the land was free, you know, he gave us liberty, you know, no poverty to lead to whatever disasters we're in, you know, but it's all in there in Harlem River Drive. So we called Harlem River Drive. And I'm saying, this is it. Okay, to myself, oh, Eddie, you did it. Boy, did it. And you know who my biggest fans were? This is incredible. The biggest fans that I did in my crossover were the Weathermen. The Weathermen were the anti-government movement in the United States. And here comes the CIA and the FBI back to see Morris Levy. So I told him, he goes, again, another meeting, Mr. Palmieri, what did you record for me this time? I said, Mr. Levy, you gave me the okay to do Harlem River Drive and the thing, and you designed the album. Plus, we had a line in there of like rent collecting whites. He changed it to, and Snooky had to change it because Morris Levy told him he was a rent collecting white. So we changed it to Death Screams in the Night. Anyway, so now here comes the FBI and the CIA again. You know, again, the meeting. Mr. Palmieri, what did you record for me this time? I said, Mr. Levy, this is not, you know, let me talk to you, Mr. Palmieri, for the last time. You know, when he meant the last time, I could have been in a cement block in the Throgs Neck Bridge that was being built next to Hoffa. Anyway, so I did it the honest truth. And he goes, Mr. Palmieri, listen to me carefully. I don't need the CIA and the FBI to come to see me for something that I didn't do. Is that clear, Mr. Palmieri? Clear as the bell, boys. Oh, my goodness.
So let's talk about...
You better cut it out, Marisol.
I'm starting trouble.
Before we all get arrested.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Let's talk about, so we played a lot of Perfecta tunes in this last set, and then the music that I have lined up to play once we go back to it, you go through this transition. There's no more clean shaven, Eddie Palmieri, you grow your hair out. You stop dressing, not nice, but you start dressing a little more hip, I guess. I'm trying to be politically correct. I don't want to say the wrong thing.
After that Perfecta?
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you about the story about dressing.
Yes.
Fast. Now, we have a gentleman called Avelino Pozo. And Pozo, he owned an After Hours, which was amazing. We all went there. That was it, you know. Forget about it, okay, in the After Hour. And he was a fan of my band, you know. Like, the reason I was able to do and get away with things with Mr. Ralph Mercado, because I knew that I was Ralph Mercado's favorite band. Okay. But after La Perfecta is when Los Diablitos come in. That's 1969. Nicky Barrero, he brings me Andy Gonzalez, Nelson Gonzalez. I didn't know who they were. You know, then Chocolate joins the band with Jose Rodriguez. And now they're all in jeans, and I love jeans and sneakers. I play stickball, you know. So that's the remember when they compare me to a Gran Combo with a problem because the Gran Combo has 2,500 uniforms. My only problem is I should have had a dry cleaners for those uniforms. Okay, so anyway, now here comes Pozo. He goes, te voy a decir la verdad, you know, Cuban. Te voy a decir la verdad. Loqueta suena muy bien, pero loqueta el vestuario, parece que ustedes loqueta de welfare.
Oh my.
So now I talk to him. Now Rene Lopez takes me to go see Chocolate, you know, when he was still, you know, in 112, 20, well, Taino Towers, you know.
That's in Manhattan.
So I get to I come in and I got all dressed up, you know, dressed up. Come up by, you got to listen to this is a killer. And I got all dressed up, you know, wow, it was sharp, man, you know. And I come to see Chocolate. And what Chocolate, you know, hey, Rene, ¿cómo está? I say, Chocolate, vengo en el vestuario que tengo encima por el respeto que te tengo. Si fui yo que te saqué de hippie.
I gotta say something about that. What happened was that when Andy and Jerry, especially Jerry, when they joined the band, Harry Vigiano and all that, you know, they were like free spirits, and they were coming from a whole other angle, and they were saying, we don't want to wear those costumes, man. Those are monkey suits, man. You know, we're musicians, man. We're not, you know. So they had great resistance to that. And with Eddie, that was like a license to be yourself. So before you knew it, man, everybody was ruggy. But it wasn't, I mean, they looked well as far as I was concerned. I liked the look, you know. But to everybody else, there was like a shock because everybody, if you look at the bands prior to that and even after, you know, they're all dressed parejo. They wanted to be seen as a unit, you know, as representing an organization. And Eddie then changed the title to Eddie Palmieri and Friends.
Now listen, this is the killer, Ralph Mercado.
Yeah.
Now Ralph Mercado had the first, the one in the Palm Gardens was the first cheetah. Then he had the second cheetah, and the first cheetah, he goes, and we can't be using the language that he used, but we all know Mr. Ralph Mercado. Eddie, if those two brothers don't wear a jacket on Saturday, I'm not going to let you play. I'm not going to let you play. I'm going to stop you at the door, and you guys are going to have to go home. I said, oh, okay. You know, I had problems in the street, you know, taxes and all that, and bailing out the young lords after they put a flag around the Statue of Liberty. Anyway, so he said, if they don't wear a jacket, I want to stop you at the door, Eddie. So I come to the two brothers, who before that I told them, listen, you got to wear a tie. Another gig is, we couldn't find a tie. We looked all over the house, we couldn't find a tie. I said, oh, no kidding. Okay. Now, when I told them, listen, I'm going to tell you something. I talked to Mr. Mercado. He told me that if you don't wear jackets on Saturday, we're not going to be able to play. Yeah. Now, it's all in your hands. They came with jackets. You know how they came with jackets? They went to the Salvation Army. And they had two bins, and one took out a green corduroy jacket. The other one took out a maroon for 25 cents each. And they put these jackets on, and when Ralph Mercado saw it, like, Eddie, what is that? You know, I said, you told them jackets. I said, is that a jacket or am I crazy? These are the mine, a line from Otis Redding. These are the mine. They don't fool me. They got jackets on. So I calmed Ralphie down. You know, I really did come until we get on stage. And when we get on stage, Jerry Gonzalez playing conga picks it, and he has no socks on.
Oh my goodness.
But they were great musicians, and it was about the music.
Rene, when we had spoken about this era of Eddie's music, you mentioned bandstand warriors, about these young musicians that, and everybody wanted to play with him. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Okay, yeah. In the 60s, I believe that by the time La Perfecta is in full gear, and Eddie already represents a really not distinctive because it's in the mold of what's happening, but such a ferocious and strong and powerful unit of music that Eddie is playing. All of the young musicians want to play with Eddie. He became the band that they all aspired to be with. Some of them made it, some of them didn't, and some of them made it at different times, maybe later on or before, but they all wanted to play with Eddie. Why? Because Eddie was the one that represented what I call, and what Eddie calls, of course, the bandstand warriors. That means that we're up there to take no prisoners. And this was also in the mold of Tito Rodriguez, Tito Puente, Machito. It wasn't something that Eddie invented. When you got up there, man, you were ready to say, "Who's here? I really don't care because he's done." You know.
From Arsenio.
Yeah, Arsenio Rodriguez. Forget it. No.
The number that I love.
Yeah, Arsenio Rodriguez has a tune that he wrote for the rival bands, and he would play it when he was finishing his set in Cuba. And the name of the tune is "Vamos a ver ahora lo que dice usted." Vamos a ver si acuerdas lo que te enseñé.
And he was in a good mood that day. He was in a good mood.
So yeah, I always felt that with Eddie, everybody wanted to be with Eddie. It really was. Honestly, you know, it was something. It was something to behold because the Young Turks wanted to be with him. They had to accept other alternatives because not everybody could play with Eddie. But I think that the cream of the crop did play with Eddie. I really do. That, of course, includes, you know, Manny and Jerry and of course, Nicky Marrero and others that came after me. Eladio, Chucky. You know, all of the new crop of musicians, they were incredible. They really were incredible. Excuse me? Well, that's a little bit later. But that's in that same mold. That's it. They all have to be in that mold. Today, they have to be in that mold or they can't be with Eddie. And the musicians know that, by the way. There was once we won't mention the name, it doesn't matter, but a very famous band leader, a friend, said that he heard Eddie the other day. And he said that Eddie was that's a lot of noise, man, because Eddie gets loud. So I conveyed the message to Eddie, you know, dándole cuerda, what they call, you know. Oye, Eddie, fulano de tal dice que you're a lot of noise. And Eddie, who's a fast wit, says, that's because he's noiseless. You know, Eddie is such a sharp brain. You know, I call him a circular thinker. You know, he thinks about something, and he doesn't really. He thinks about it to the end of the problem, if it's a problem or whatever it is. He always comes to a conclusion. And one time I saw an interview with Eddie, or heard an interview with Eddie when he put out the album on Epic, which was a great album that was done on Epic. Lukumima Kumbavuru, I think was the name of it.
Yeah.
If I may, while I was recording that, Mr. Rene Lopez was assigned by CBS to host and take La Iraquere with Chucho Valdez all over, and he brought him to the studio while I was recording that track, Lukumima Kumbavudu.
Yeah, they loved it. They were, whoa. It gave them another perspective of what was happening because generally they were a little condescending in a way. Not really, but you know, because Cuba was into another level already. Iraquere and other bands were coming. They were going elsewhere. But anyway, the thing is that they interview Eddie and they asked him, the album was not a big financial success for the company. As a matter of fact, in the words of the industry, it tanked, so to speak. So one of the problems, and I had talked about it with Eddie, I told Eddie, I said, you know, Eddie, in Puerto Rico, which is, these are arrogant companies. and they ignore the bases sometimes because they loved Eddie. Certainly, you know, Bruce Lundvall loved Eddie. That's why he signed them. Their idea was Eddie is so good that they want to break him all over the world. They want to break him into mainstream. And they have the power and they think the machinery. But in doing that, they ignored his base. And I would say if they were really a smart company, because when they get big, they get pretty arrogant, you make sure you have the base and then you go on from there. But Puerto Rico, the distributor for Columbia Records in Puerto Rico was a furniture store. That was their distribution in Puerto Rico. Una tienda que vendía muebles, okay? And I told Eddie knew that. So when they interview Eddie about the album and they sort of mentioned, you know, it didn't go where, whatever, I forget it was, Eddie Palmieri's answer was, just the title was blacker than anything CBS has had on this label in the past 30 years. I'll never forget that. That's Eddie's wit.
And then they weren't black enough. Excuse me. And then they threw me out.
One more article that I saw that I always laugh. I laugh at Eddie a lot because his wit is just incredible. He says they interviewed him for this technical magazine, and they were talking to him about the Yamaha piano, and you know, and what pianos does he use, and what does he prefer. And he mentioned the piano, and they were touting another piano that it's like computers in there. So it sounds like a real piano because it produces computerized piano notes. It's not something that's electronic only. So Eddie said, well, I don't like to play that piano. And they said, well, why? And you know, he said, there's not enough room for my elbows. Everybody's waiting for this. Bueno, que el sonido no me gusta. You know, I don't like this. You know, it doesn't do the high notes well. No. There was no room for my elbows.
All right, so now we're going to play some music. I just wanted to share some words from Mickey, because I did ask him to share about his experience with you and your music. And in his words, he says, I met Eddie as a teenager with Albie Diaz learning the dance business. When we took over the Statue of Liberty, he was so moved by the action, watching it being reported on the nightly news. He called then news reporter Pablo Yoruba Guzman and asked how he could help. Pablo connected Eddie to me, and Eddie agreed to do a concert to help raise the fine money for 27 people who participated in the takeover. On a Sunday afternoon, like today, at Hunter College, with Bobby Rodriguez y La Compañía, we raised enough money to pay the fine and take the band to Bedford Hills, Rikers Island, and Green Haven Correctional Facilities. We have been connected at the hip ever since.
You're still alive.
And on that note, todavía.
Didi, with all these labors and all these, forget about it, you're still alive. You are amazing. As a matter of fact, Houdini had nothing on you. Mr. Felipe Luciano's here ready to go. What was the question?
There actually wasn't a question, but you're the boss. You're the boss, Dr. Palmieri. We're going to play some music, okay?
No. You gave me a question. Did you ask me a question?
The magic of live radio. Yes. No, I didn't give you a question. We were just talking about, okay, I asked you a question. So,
I don't know what you asked me. Did you ask me something?
No, I didn't. It really was just sharing a little bit about Mickey and the connection that you have to the social justice movement.
Yes. Now, Mickey is here. We got here Mr. Felipe Luciano. We have Yoruba Guzman. These are incredible. See, you could have incredible thoughts in that, but when you have the preparation, when you investigate the problems that were existing in those years, that's why I mentioned Holliver Drive is the past, present, and future. And they read that very, very, very well. They were the problem. There was tensions in the street. There was problems all over all over New York, well, all over, look at the world now, it's completely in upheaval.
Yes.
It's so sad that I can't even think about traveling anymore. By the way, I'm going to Beijing, China. And then I'm going to go, and I can't help it because they're not going to bring me the dough. I got to go get it. So after that, I'm going to Japan, and then Sapporo, then I come back. But there's so many factors with all the terrorism that's in the world, that I had these young players that, and my son, Eddie Palmieri II, that anything could happen, a bus driver, and then I have to report, with my luck, I'll probably be the only one that's alive, to come to talk to them about how their children died, you know.
Yeah.
That's always in my mind. And besides that, we have to go into mental fatigue of the airplane, you know. To go to Japan, it takes 36 days. That's 26 hours round trip. These flights are heavy. To go to Perth, Australia, which I did, you got to cross the English Ocean. I've been there 4 times. You got to get to Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia or to Japan, and then get on another flight the next day to travel. Let me put it this way: from Sydney to Perth is like New York to California, but add an extra 1,000 miles, 4,000 miles. When I came out of there, I was known as Kangaroo Ed with music in a pouch. You like that one? With music in a pouch. And that pouch was completely covered. Anyway, but Mr. Melendez, you know, took me, and that experience that I had going to play in all the different prisons, that I went twice to Attica, twice to Sing Sing. As a matter of fact, when I went to see Kyle and Clash, that wrote the lyrics for Hollywood Drive, when we went and I convinced the company, Morris Levy, which was Felipe's boy, you know, and I went to play for Snooki, they moved him to another prison. And now I got this guy called Joe Cayani, that was his Italian name, but he changed his name to Joe Kane. He goes, Eddie. I said, what's so mad? He said, Eddie, it's 80% black. I said, who cares? Open up the curtain, you know? But Mickey made it possible. Lewisburg, when the people from Watergate came in, we did all that free. You know, free in the sense that very, very few gentlemen know the suffering of being locked up for their beliefs, you know. I feel very bad about this gentleman, you know, Oscar Rivera, Diego, you know, in my opinion, yeah. You know, not, you know, because Melissa Clark Benito is a very dear friend of mine, you know, and she's getting clobbered. But remember that no matter if he's called a terrorist, we had Mandela, you know, and Mandela came out not only as a hero, you know, became a president of part of Africa, you know, and all we had to do was bring this gentleman out who was pardoned, and we crucified him, in my opinion, equal or worse than Jesus Christ, you know, except he don't have holes in his hands and that, you know. Very, very sad. But the young lords, in my opinion, were so aware of what was going on, and the sincere effort to help under conditions that were impossible to do, you know, because that wasn't going to happen, you know. You can't go against the ball game, you know, that's control. Let me give you an example. The gentleman calls Mr. Smith in The Wonderful Wealth Machine. This is what he says, and he wrote, it's called The Wonderful Wealth Machine that I got from my teacher. The law grinds the poor, and the rich rule the law. So now, where are we going to go from here? And that's in Hollywood Drive. Where do we go from here? So to be able to exist under conditions that exist, remember, everything goes up. Everything goes up. Food, rents, bingo, bango. Well, and when that goes up, wages tend to fall. And poverty is either low wages or no wages. And poverty is the parent of war and crime. So that's the conditions that we're in every day. That we're still alive is beyond anybody's comprehension. So music becomes so important for me to be able to present something so special every time I record, or I won't record. If I can do something special and not record in a garage somewhere or in a thing, you got to take me to a studio, because my main concern is the quality of the music to my fans, and otherwise, to me, it means nothing. Híbalo!
I'd like to make one last statement, Marisol, just before we go to the
absolutely,
music, just very fast. When we said bandstand warriors, warriors are not only on the bandstand. There are warriors that are not on the bandstand, but they're warriors. And Felipe Luciano just came in, and he's absolutely a warrior. And we have Vicky Solas here also, another one of our warriors. Okay? And it's very important. They've spent many years promoting the best of this music, and in my opinion, on the right side of the causes, and I just want to recognize them. Thank you.
All right, but let me also interject. I was his instructor for martial arts.
Okay, now we're really gonna go to the music. Okay, enjoy, guys. Enjoy.
Coming to you from our BronxNet studios, 4 new shows highlighting some of the best of the Bronx has to offer. We sit down with political leaders in the district and discuss local legislation, events, and issues. See how the community and business come together with The Bronx Now on BronxNet. Nosotros features leaders from our Latino community. Meet those who are moving to make a difference in public service, business, arts, and culture. Looking for new and exciting dining experiences? Then you'll want to savor the Bronx and try new restaurants and eateries that fill the borough with delicious dishes. We have it all, so experience the Bronx in new and fresh ways on BronxNet.
All right. A round of applause for the dancers that all the listeners that are tuning in cannot see. All right, we are live here at WBAI 99.5 FM in New York, and we have the son of Latin music, the prolific, the master, El Sabio, Eddie Palmieri with us, and it's an honor.
The problem is, that I'm known as the son of y the other day me cayó un aguacero encima. And I said, el son de la música está ensopado. I want to say first hello to Charlie Rosario, who made beautiful albums for me. Very talented. Felipe, we're going to have to come again in 2 or 4 weeks, whatever, so we could talk about because we're running out of time. I asked, but we can't bring you today, you know what I mean? Because once you say one of your poems, today is Sunday, it probably ends by Thursday.
So Charlie, you...
Well, we love you, and I want to thank you in my heart for being here, okay? You know.
And if you don't, and I'd like to mention something.
Absolutely.
Just in the spirit of Charlie Rosario, I'd like to give a mention to his brother Yogi Rosario, who designed both of my Grupo albums, and of course to my good friend Felix Cortez, who wrote the liner notes for the albums. He's here with us, and it's a pleasure to have Felix here. Thank you.
Yes, we are in very good company today. I hope you guys are enjoying it. We're having a blast here. That last tune we played was the latest version of Pala Ocha Tambon. It was released in 2015.
Let me see what year that was. When I did, that's when I went, you know, when I wrote La Ocha, I wrote it at Andy's and Jerry's house in the Bronx. You know. The day before I went to Sing Sing.
And
Okay.
yeah.
And you came in and did, Hibaro, my pretty nigga. So I wrote it there. Then the problem was that, you know, we did it, you know, so eventually I get to Rene Hernandez, the great Rene Hernandez de Puerto Rico, who did Lalo Rodriguez for me. He did El Día Que Me Quiera for me, you know, what I wanted, you know. It was just amazing. Because when he did Regimo Alegre, I have to thank Rene Lopez when he released the album about Caño with the medley of 3 numbers, which tenía que ser así and all that. So Rene Hernandez, let me tell you the story about Rene Hernandez. Living in Calle del Parque, in Puerto Rico. So I go there, naturally, you know, and he doesn't want to get involved anymore, you know, writing. Yeah. So I said, mira, Rene, you know, and he loved my brother Charlie and me, you know. You know why we could only work from 2 to 4? I found that out later. Because at 4:30, he was every day in the church for the mass at 4:30 to 5. And that's how he died. He died a saint in his sleep. So, you know that I took Lalo Rodriguez first, you know, we did his work and all that, you know, because to be able to give the excellence of my presentations, I certainly have no intimidating factor with my orchestra or nothing like that. And if I know less than anyone else, then that gentleman is going to do the work for me. That was Rene Hernandez, just like Ray Santos just did for me now. Okay. So, here I go again. What did I say?
About Rene Hernandez going to visit him.
Yeah, so I go to Rene Hernandez. And I bring Rene Lopez album that he did with Andy Kaufman. This is an amazing story. Nobody knows this but me and Rene. And I'm a tattletale. And I love it. In Spanish, uña mi trae. Here, watch this. So I tell him, I'm talking to him about El Día Que Me Quiera. I'm walking through Llorén Torres, going through hard times on my end, and I'm walk through Llorén Torres ain't no joke, you know. And I'm singing what I want from the intro of El Día Que Me Quiera, because I saw that movie at my mother's house and my father in Bayamón with Carlos Gardel. And the story is that Carlos Gardel, with the wife, you know, she dies giving birth, and now the daughter is become the great singer, but he cuts out for 17 years. But he robs his father's house, and the gentleman who becomes the son-in-law later, saw him rob, and he saw him by his eyes. It's a whole story. I said, wow, and I loved it. And I used to go with the few, be-bo-dee, what I wanted. And then the respect to the country, the tango. I mean, that's an incredible arrangement. And I kept telling Rene Hernandez what I wanted, But in the interim, I gave him Ritmo Alegre. This is the greatest story that I could ever tell anybody. I'm looking at Felipe because I told him, Rene, tengo este LP que lo grabó Rene Lopez, que es, y aquí hay un número que se llama Ritmo Alegre de Alcaño. And it was a medley, it's done song, and then he goes, tenía que ser así, the ballad, and then go por eso ahora, ya yo three, a medley, right? Now he's going to take out his Gerard changer. I think it was there for about between 12 and 15 years. When he takes it out, the dust didn't help it for our climate. What do we call that now? That nobody wants to get involved with the climate of
Global warming.
pollution. I think Rene started that in Puerto Rico. When I went, what the? I couldn't believe it. Okay, now he puts on the record. This is the most amazing thing because he was a genius. He was a genius. He was my first musical godfather. And I had my second, Mr. Ray Santos, which I told the other day, if you die, I'll kill you. So, yeah, he takes it out. He puts, ponme el disco. I put on the record. He's sitting in a chair with a pencil, music paper, and as it's playing, he's going, dun, dun, I mean, the whole array, the whole thing, without getting up from the chair. And I'm looking at him, and I'm looking at a genius with perfect pitch. And I'm going, oh, gee, and now he finished it all. And this is what I told him. Oye, ay, Rene, I swear, just like this, ay, Rene, si yo pusiera hacer eso. He goes, I told him, Rene, tú nunca fallas. He goes, pero cuando no me siento bien, estoy como medio todo fuera. I have a zone off. I went, Jesus, unbelievable, man. And then he gave me the album, and then Victor Paz made it with 4 trumpets. It's a classic. And you can make that white album with the blue, But the best part about it was now we were in the studio for Jerry, At that time, and I'll make it short, okay. At that time, hold on, because of what I was going to say, that's why I bumped you off there, Felipe. So at that time, Fania, which is cutting corners in the most incredible ways, Remember, Jerry Masici, when he dies, he left $35 million. Okay, right? So every producer brought in the album in 100 hours. Finished. Mixed and what's the other thing? What do you call the other?
Mastered.
Mastered, thank you. In 100 hours. So I get to this, I'm going to go to Tierra. Don't be laughing. Tierra, which was the RKO, And I realized that El Día que Me Quiere, there's no trumpet player in New York that could do this better than Victor Paz. Victor Paz haven't talked to each other for 3 years because of the problem with Lukubi Makuba Buddha with CBS with a $500,000 deal, and he was looking for some dough, and he lost. He lost. Okay. Now I have no choice but to call Victor Paz. And there was, forget the name of the thing, but they were like the answering service, you know. This is Eddie Palmieri. I'm looking for Victor Paz, you know. And when you tell them I'm in Tierra Sound was the RKO studios first. Yeah. Now I'm in the studio with Alfredo Lee, who Alfredo Lee was, he was from Chile. He was the engineer they gave me. Here comes Victor Paz. He walks in, and I go, Bitín. And he says, me llamaste por tu conciencia. No. It gets better and better. Felipe, I swear to you and compay. Now, remember, the record was 100 hours. Yes. I mean, Luis Ramirez, Larry Harlow, Pacheco, 100 hours, everything finished. Victor Paz and I argued for 100 hours. Jesus Christ. Before we ever got started, 100 hours went out the window. Now the record is about 250 hours. It ended at 400 hours, okay? The engineer, Alfredo Lee, after that recording, that they didn't want to pay him for the 400, he became a Mormon. So help me God. He goes to Utah, becomes a Mormon. He had to get out of here. So now here comes Victor Gallo, who to me was the only rooster that laid rotten eggs. And he goes, Eddie Palmieri Palmieri's still in the studio. 200 hours, 250, going on 300 hours. And Jerry said, I got the word from Luis Ramirez. He said, leave him alone, he's like the Beatles. But it went for 400 hours. But it's one of the greatest albums of synchronization. That's for Victor Paz on side B, and with Sal Cuevas, who passed away, that came in the overdub and recorded live the tango, because Victor Paz was doing all the Hollywood, all the Broadway shows, and he brought all those great musicians at midnight to do El Día Que Me Quiera, but soon. The French horn was those guys. No, everybody he brought in after the show was over, brought him to the studio, and they overdub. And now he started with the fourth trumpet, the third trumpet, second trumpet, then the first trumpet. Right now, I just talked to him. Yeah, this is what he's saying. This is what he told me. This is amazing. He's now, let me see, I'm 31. You see, let me put it this way. See, now I'm 30 going on 31. If you keep that up, you're attempting to fool the brain. If you're able to fool the brain, how old would you feel if you didn't know how old you were? So sure enough, I talked to Victor Paz the other day. I called him, because I was going to go to Panama, and they got canceled. So I said, wow. So I called Gasu, Victor Paz is the one that taught me, cuando tú desarrollas el sentido común, es cuando tú puedes identificar con quién debe estar, con quién no debe estar, lo que you have to do. And then he gives you an example. Tú no me ves a mí como un jockey de caballo. Y tú no ves a Gasu, the trumpet player, hermano, como un luchador de la lucha romana. So Victor Paz was just so amazing of what he did. Now I bring him to the thing. He goes, yo te grabo todo, pero me tiene que quitar toda la trompeta. That was John Faddis. That was Lou Soloff, Alan Rubin, and Chocolate. And then he told me, y no me menciones Chocolate que me da asco. They hated each other. And he told that to Chocolate, Chocolate le dijo, está bien, pero cada vez que yo te oigo cogiendo un solo, yo me enfermo. Anyway, the main thing is that I'm going to shut up now. This is to be continued. We're going to do a reality show. I'm bringing Felipe Rene and I and Mickey, and we're going to go on TV and forget about anybody else.
I'd like
All
to mention.
right. So,
Excuse me.
Hold it.
One more?
I already said it. Go.
I'd be remiss if I stepped over the fact that we did not get to play as nearly as much music that we could have. We didn't even touch the Latin jazz hardly.
All right, well, let me just say about Latin jazz. You don't have to play it. You don't have to play it. Let me tell you what it is.
Okay.
And this is the problem I have. I was already, there's a beautiful friend of mine called Michelle Zarin that lives in Vegas. She was the one that handled Tower of Power, okay? So I've been saying that wisdom, sabiduría, is the greatest dance Latin jazz album ever recorded. Not taking anything away from any other Latin jazz that was recorded. Because we have jazz Latin, which was like very one conga. But when I talk about Latin jazz, it's my whole rhythm section in that. This is the essence of my life, is to be a dance orchestra leader. I put people to dance. I know how to do that. It got to the point that I learned it so well that I don't guess that I will do it. I know it, And it has nothing to do with the great Latin jazz CDs that have been done. But there's nothing like this CD. This CD started with some young gentleman, Babito, on TV, and his boy, and they came to Vegas. I was living in Vegas then, and my son, Eddie Palmieri II, came and gave me an assignment for an album called Doing It in the Park. So I did 3 compositions, with the great Ronnie Cuba. Ronnie Cuba from Michelle Zarin is known as the god of the baritone, and he certainly deserves that. But it came out so great, we just kept recording, Then we brought Alfredo de la Fe, who will be with me tomorrow at Subrosa. Then for the title track, we brought Marcus Miller. We brought Dave Spinoza. Dave Spinoza is the great guitarist that recorded with John Lennon and Paul McCartney. He does all the galas in New York, the Grammys, the Tonys, whatever you want, he's there. And then Mr. Bernard Purdy, that recorded with me in 1971, Harlem
River Drive.
Harlem River Drive, thank you. Which I told Melissa Clark Marito that listen, my problem that you have is you gave my brother a street, but you gotta die first, And I go to the Gran que me lo den en vida. So I asked her, I recorded Harlem River Drive. Don't be laughing, compadre. I recorded Harlem River Drive. I would like for you to call it the Eddie Palmieri Harlem River Drive, eventually. And I'll put a toll for $1. A quarter goes to the Lebanon Hospital because of Bob Sancho and Rene. The other quarter goes to the community. I'll throw it towards Carlos Diaz, The other quarter is for my brother, and the other quarter is for me. And my brother told me I could keep his quarter. I'll kill him. Anyway, I believe I have nothing else to say or make you...
That's not true.
I wanted to make a mention
Rene.
about Victor Paz,
Yes.
the perfectionist, very, very fast.
Yes,
I'm a nut for Arsenio Rodriguez, and I believe that he's the father of modern day salsa, and maybe one of the greatest Cuban musicians of the 20th century. Now, maybe to me, absolutely. He changed the music, he changed the structure, he did it all. Okay, so now I have Victor. We're in the Corso, and we're at the bottom of the Corso. There's a bar, and I always used to carry around my Walkman with my headsets and everything, and play music for everybody. So I tell him, Victor, I want you to listen to this. So he listens to this Arsenio recording. And this is Victor. He puts it down. He says, Rene.
I know the answer. This is incredible.
He said, Rene, los cantantes, tremendo. The singers are great, man. La sección de ritmo, ni hablar. The rhythm section, dynamite. El pianista Lili is on another planet. El bajista tremendo, todo sabroso, pero las tres trompetas suenan como tres borrachos. Because they had that rugged trumpet sound.
Now,
But that was Victor.
This is amazing. And then I stopped. Until 2 weeks from now. I called Victor Paz the other day because I believed I had an engagement to go to Panama, but it got canceled. They told me that because Victor wasn't feeling well. So I called Gasu, Nelson Hyman, and he gave me the number and I called me. He said, no, yo estoy lo más bien. Remember, he was the greatest first trumpet, and now he says, yo soy la mejor cuarta trompeta que existe. First trumpet. Okay. Listen to this. This is it. This is it. This is the essence of my life, man. I'm listening to the greatest first trumpet player I've ever met in my life. Siendo de raza latina, he broke all records. Let me tell you a story first, fast.
Dios mío, se nos va el tiempo.
I want you to come back. This is the last of Tuesday. Victor Paz is working with Tito Rodriguez with the greatest orchestra that Tito Rodriguez ever put together in 1962 with Cachao. That, Tito #1, killer. Now here comes Victor Paz, and he's destroyed. He's the Panamanian Indian liquor, whatever. He liked all the vices, and he gets to the gig, and Tito lashes it to him. Mira cómo te ve. ¿Qué me puede contestar a mí en las condiciones que yo te veo? Complicaciones. which he told me that would be also my book. Y le dije, Pitín, cuando escriban el libro mío, va a ser muchas páginas. No, mira, una página y una. Él iba a decir complicaciones. Now watch it. Ray Santos is in the band. Johnny Rodriguez is in the band. And now Tito, who knew his book, starts. 2 years that he's been with the band, he hasn't made a mistake yet. And he did that on Broadway. He did 25 years on the Broadway shows, Okay. And now Tito Rodriguez starts calling the hardest composition that he knows for trumpet, And Ray Santos said, tonight's the night that he will falter, So I asked Ray, how did he do? Eddie, he never played better and never opened up the book. Tito,
Tell him about rehearsing, about
All right.
the music.
We have
Knowing what he had done.
time check. We have about,
It's just one more thing.
Ay, Dios mío.
Oh, Marisol, will you shut up?
Lord, please, Lord.
No, it's when I talk to this Nicky complying, Felipe, because you gentlemen are so prepared, and everybody. I'm talking to him. I called him because I heard that I thought he was sick. He said, no, yo estoy lo más bien. ¿Tú sabes lo que yo estoy haciendo? I said, no. Yo estoy escuchando el día que me quiera páginas de moda, White Album, y ritmo alegre. Y yo lo estoy escuchando para corregir lo que toqué mal yo. Para mejorarlo. I'm going, look, my heads, man. I went, Yeah, he is my true teacher, I love Mr. Victor Paz very much. He was the greatest first trumpet that ever, and he sat next to John Faddis to play when John Faddis was in his height. And John Faddis, I don't care who sat next to him, he never had a sucking trumpet better than Victor Paz. My opinion. Raza Latina.
Yay. Yeah, you sure? Okay. All right, well, we have about 17 minutes left, and we wanted to allow some questions, but we might not have time for that today, so that means you're going to have to come back. Okay?
Would you like me to play piano?
I would like you, yes. Yes, we would like you to do that. And before you do...
Well, I'm not going to do it today, but when I come back in 2 weeks...
But there's a piano right there.
When Felipe comes on to talk, that's when I'll play piano.
Okay.
And then I'll accompany you when he goes, heave out of my printer, nigga.
It's because it's an upright.
Yes, but he played it earlier, actually. Yes, he did. He did.
All right, let me play something.
There you go.
If you
Okay. Okay,
It's
so...
on my new CD, Sabiduría. And
Play the piano, for God's sake.
hold on, please. Throw her around. This is when my wife, Elaida, was dying. She got hit with cancer twice. And we know that we have many friends that are cancer survivors, which is no joke. And as she was dying, I played this composition and I called it Life. It's on the new CD, Sabiduría, and I certainly hope you enjoy it. You know, Felipe, I don't want to say, but I'm quite blasted, you understand? Keep it a secret.
You heard that, listeners. Keep that a secret. Thanks. All right, we're waiting for Mr. Palmieri to make his way over to the piano, which is not that far. And you are all going to be treated to him playing live here at WBAI. Such a privilege. All right, we have 3 minutes left to this broadcast, so we wanted to break in and say our goodbyes. Well, say our see you laters, because we still have a lot of Eddie Palmieri to go, including his music and what he has lined up for the future. So I just want to thank everybody for being with us today. I also want to thank BronxNet for being with us and for filming today, WBAI, The Commons, Rene.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for Marisol.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. So, Eddie, I want to give you and Rene a few minutes. We only have about 2 just to say your goodbyes and say that you guys are coming back to do another show.
I'll let Rene say goodbye.
Eddie Palmieri would say he could be here until midnight.
Oh. That's our station manager.
Eddie's joking.
Our radio will preempt everything and then keep him until midnight. But
Well, you better bring more wine and beer. Otherwise, I'm leaving now.
Well, you know, I'd like to thank everybody for being here, and I'd like for those that are listening to to take seriously and I know they do, that the music is joy and it's fun, but it's very serious. Eddie has for many years championed the cause of those that are downtrodden and those that are suffering, and his album Justicia, and La Libertad Lógico, an album that he did in the past that represented the aspirations of not only the Puerto Ricanos, of course, that's his community, but of all of those that are struggling to make do, so to speak, and to be heard also. And in today's environment, that's not an easy situation as far as I'm concerned. But Eddie has been at the forefront of it. I think he will continue to be. His last album is a marvel as far as I'm concerned. It's Eddie's example of what he calls, I play Latin music, I play Latin jazz. That's different than all the other Latin jazz, because my Latin jazz is danceable. I've been playing dance music, and I will play dance music until I finish my career, which will be when it's over, so to speak. So the Wisdom, the Sabiduría album is a danceable album. It's danceable Latin jazz, and I think that's a very strong indication of where Eddie is coming from and what he's always done all his life. I applaud the effort. I think it's great, and I expect to see many great things. By the way, there's also something else that Eddie has recorded that hasn't been released yet, which is a big band album, which I think is going to knock the socks off everybody. It represents the music that Eddie heard when he was young and that influenced his life and that influenced all of us here eventually. And Eddie has done an album as a tribute to those composers and arrangers, and someday when it comes out, and it will, it's going to be a landmark album, another one from Eddie. Okay. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, I just learned the lesson, compay, I'll never bring Rene Lopez again. My teacher.
All right, well, we'll be back on the air in 2 weeks, and this show will be available on the archive immediately after. So thank you all for being with us. Give yourselves a round of applause. And at home too. And he will be back. Yes? Yes?
Whenever you need me here, I'll be here. Don't tell Nikki Melendez, but I'll be here.
Okay.
Yeah, I have one question. They said that after Mark Anthony, Latin music is dead.
Say that again.
They said after.
You said that Mark Anthony killed that music?
After Mark.
I don't hear too well. What did you say?
Where do we go from here? Where do we go from here?
Oh, just follow me.
Okay, so we're off the air now, okay? So this is...
Mark Anthony, right?
Confidence doesn't run in the Palmieri family. It gallops.
Before we do this next segment, I just want to share a fun fact. Eddie, you're left-handed, and
Yes,
you
I
write
am.
and you write where you.
But I write with my right.
Ah, you see?
Oh, I'm getting an award? I'm so, but but I certainly deserved it. By the way, I'm improving on my understanding of my ego. I'm trying to control my ego, but I've been saying to everybody, like Nelson Gonzalez, I'm playing better and I know it. How's that for controlling your ego? Anyway, thank you for this today. Thank you.
Thank you. We just wanted to take a minute and recognize Eddie publicly. Marisol and I have developed this award called the Victor Jara Award. Real quickly, for those people who don't know who Victor Jara is, Victor Jara was a folk singer, a musician in Chile, and was arrested when Pinochet gave the Golpe de Estado, whatever it is, the coup. So he was one of 50,000 people put in the stadium, and he was a musician. And they cut his fingers off, and they taunted him and asked him to play his guitar. He couldn't play his guitar, so he kept on singing. And eventually, a policeman shot him in the head, and then they shot him 40 times. The good story, if there's anything good in all of this, is that in 2014, they identified the police who were Chilenos living in Florida. They were extradited back to Chile to stand trial for murder, and the family was given $28 million, and they formed the Fundación Victor Jara. So Victor Jara is a musician that was a revolutionary and paid the ultimate price with his life. There's some bios around there of him. So, Eddie, we're trying to present the award now.
What's your name again?
So, Marisol, why don't you read?
This is my compay, Mickey Melendez.
Why don't you read?
Bad man.
All right, so this reads.
Oh, look how beautiful.
Mira qué lindo, mira.
Oh, that's beautiful.
It has music notes on it. It has a fist. And it reads, Victor Jara Venceremos Award, Maestro Eddie Palmieri, in appreciation of your generosity, talent, and time in support of social and cultural justice. Today, June 4th, 2017, con Sabor Latino, Montuneando con Marisol, WBAI 99.5 FM,
Oh, that's
New
beautiful.
York. Congratulations. We love you.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. One more. Thank you, Marisol, and I wish you the best every other week here. And I told you already that whenever you need me, don't call me. You can count on me anytime that you need me here, and I'll come with Rene Lopez. And next time we'll bring Felipe Luciano. We're really blowing out, and Mickey has to talk. He hasn't talked in 16 years yet, and he has to start expressing his. Mickey Melendez to me is one of the most incredible, human beings I've met. His drive for justice, his drive for equal rights, his drive for everything is wrapped around his heart, his soul, and his guts. And I respect him and love him very, very much. Okay? Okay, Mickey, you can give me the $25 you offered me.
I'd like to say that this is the best radio. I've done a lot of radio since I started with Felipe many years ago, Latin Roots, and this is the best radio program I've ever done or ever been associated with, or I've ever heard.
Okay, Nate, no.